Okay, we're starting right now. Ever sit down, open up your Gemaras, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Today is Chav Tes Nisan. Today is the 14th day of the Yomer. We're learning Daf Yud Dalet. We left off yesterday Yud Gimel Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Found it? Yud Gimel Amud Beis. That's not the right page.
Oh, sorry.
Look for it. You can find it. Okay. So we're going to finish today the Perek Aleph of Sotah Makane, finishing up with the sugya of the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was discussed in the Mishnah.
2 lines on the one, right?
Yeah, and then we are starting the second parak. We're going to discuss the mincha of the Sotah, the carbon mincha, the flour carbon out of barley that she brings, and we're going to learn a lot of halachas about a carbon mincha. We'll leave that for Perek Beis. Let's get started. 2 lines from the bottom. Vayikbar oisei bagai baratzmayav, the third word on the line. The Torah says in Parshas V'zei that the Eibishter buried Moshe vayikbar oisei bagai. He buried him in the valley, be'eretz Moav, in the land of Moav. Mul beis pa'or, opposite the Avodah Zarah pa'or. Taking Gemara, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis on the bottom. Opposite pa'or. So pa'or is the Avodah Zarah pa'or that the way it was served is that people would defecate in front of it. And the story goes that Bilam, take any Gemara, that Bilam convinced the king of Moav, Balak, to get the Jewish people to sin. He said that what you do is that you get the girls to sit in front of the tent, entice them, have them commit adultery, and then commit idolatry with pa'or. The Jewish people fell with pa'or. We're going to see some of the details over here. And there was a plague that killed 24,000 Jews until Pinchas went and killed Zimri. The story is told in the end of Parshas Balak. So Moshe is buried in the valley in the land of Moav, opposite pa'or, opposite the Avodah Zarah. So Amar Brechia says that siman b'soich siman, that the Torah gives you a sign within a sign. It gives you many signs to say exactly where Moshe is buried. And even so, that the Torah is so specific that where Moshe is buried, no one knows where he's buried. The Torah says that no one knows where Moshe is buried. Turning to Daf Yudal and Aleph, the evil kingdom, which refers to the Romans, already sent a message to the governor of the place of Pa'or, that area, had a Roman governor. The Romans were in control of that area. And they sent a guy over there. And they asked it, and they told him, Heranu Heichon Moshe Kavar, show us where Moshe is buried. So they looked for it. They went to the valley, and Amdu Lamaila, when they stood on the top of the mountain, Nidmalem Lamata, it looked like Moshe was buried on the bottom. Lamata, they stood on the bottom, Nidmalem Lamaila, it looked like he was buried on the top. Where Yudal and Amud Aleph, we are 3 lines from the top of the Yom. So they split into 2 groups, the soldiers. And those that were standing on the top, looked like Moshe was buried on the bottom. The ones that were on the bottom, looked like Moshe was buried on the top. And this whole story was in order to fulfill the pasuk in Parshas V'zei that no one knows where Moshe is buried. Rav Chama, the son of Rav Chanina, says that Af Moshe Rabbeinu even Moshe Rabbeinu himself does not know where he's buried. How do we know this? Because it says in the pasuk that no man, no ish knows where Moshe is buried. And the other pasuk in Parshas Bracha says, "This is the bracha that Moshe, the man of God, blessed the Jewish nation." And you have ish that Moshe is called ish. So is that not even Moshe himself? You can take Gemara. There's a bunch that not even Moshe himself knows where he is buried. Okay. But Amar Rav Chama, the son of Rav Chanina said, how come Moshe was buried next to Beis Pa'or? How come he was buried next to this Avodah Zarah? So says the Gemara, in order to atone for the sin of Pa'or. So the shaila is, yesterday we already learned about how Moshe passed away outside of Eretz Yisrael. We know why he died by Pa'or, because of hitting the rock and the whole story over there, that Hashem said that you're not able to go into Eretz Yisrael. However, if he had to die outside of Eretz Yisrael, at least, the Maharsha says, at least Moshe could have been buried in Eretz Yisrael. Just like Yaakov Avinu, Yosef, they all died out of Eretz Yisrael. And all the Shvatim, really, they all died in Mitzrayim, and they were brought to Eretz Yisrael. So the shaila is, why wasn't his body brought into Eretz Yisrael? So the answer the Gemara gave is in order to atone for the sin of Pa'or. That's why he had to be buried dafka next to Pa'or. And if you look in Tosfos, look the top Tosfos on the page, he gives a... What? It says in the pasuk, we're in the top Tosfos now. So it says that Moshe was buried opposite Pa'or in the valley. There's a medrash that says that at the exact anniversary every year of when the Yidden sinned with the daughters of Moav by Pa'or. So Beis Pa'or, Beis Pa'or, this Avodah Zarah goes up to heaven, in order to prosecute against the Yidden and to remind the Eibishter of the sin. And once Pa'or sees Moshe's grave, it goes back and sinks into the ground. So Moshe is buried opposite Pa'or to make sure that the Jews are atoned for Pa'or, and Pa'or can't go and prosecute the Jewish nation. Okay, if we look, so if you look in the Gemara, you see the next statement from Reb Chanina is it has an aleph over there. The aleph in parentheses, you see?
Yeah.
So the aleph in parentheses,
No.
it's next to
the
it's next to the Hagoy Sabach.
Yeah.
So that aleph goes to the Hagoy Sabach. The Hagoy Sabach adds a whole bunch of lines into the Gemara. So the Hagoy Sabach says like this. That Reb Chanina says like this. He's adding from a different gerson. Al Maisa Pa'or. Yeah, why is Moshe Rabbeinu's caver hidden? Why don't we know where he's buried? Me'ene basar from our eyes. Me'ene basar v'dam. Because the Eibishter knew that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. Yehuda, look inside the Bach. The Eibishter knew that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. Ulahaglois, as Yisrael, and he knew that the Yidden are going to go into Galus. May art some from their land. You see where I am, the Bach? Shema Yavai Lukvarase Shal Moshe. So the Eibishter is worried that if they're going to know where Moshe is buried, they're going to come to Moshe Rabbeinu's cave. And they're going to cry out to Moshe. They're going to plead with him. And they're going to say to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher, stand up in prayer ba'adenu for us. And then what's going to happen? Moshe is going to stand up. Moshe is going to annul the decree of the Yidden in Galus. And then the Yidden are never going to go to Galus. The tzaddikim are more precious to Hashem when after they're dead than when they were alive. So for sure Hashem is going to listen to Moshe to not send the Yidden into Galus. And this is what we find when the Edom were in the desert. They screwed up. And they made a golden calf. And the Eibishter got upset at the Jews. And he said to Moshe, leave me alone, and let me destroy the Jewish nation. How many tzaddikim were in that generation? There was a lot of tzaddikim and many pious men. Moshe, Aaron, Yeshua, Eldad, Umeidad, and Zikanim, the 70s Kanim, all these chevra were all big tzaddikim. However, Ushar Chacham v'Talmidim and many other Talmidei Chachamim v'lei asa b'shvilam v'lei bital agzera el b'shvil Moshe. And the reason why Hashem didn't destroy the Yidden, it was all in the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu. So for sure, if the Yidden are going to come to the caver on their way into Golos, the Moshe Rabbeinu is going to ask Hashem for mercy, and Hashem is going to listen to them, and the Yidden are not going to go into Golos. But that's not the divine plan. The divine plan is that the Yidden need to go into Golos in order that we can have the tachlis of Bris Ha'olam. So therefore, Hashem hides Moshe Rabbeinu's caver from us. Then, we're back in the Gemara. You see the pasuk over here that's quoted, a pasuk in Parshas Re'eh, that says you should go after Hashem your God. You should follow Hashem. So asks the Gemara, is it possible for a person to go and follow the Shekhinah? It says in the pasuk, Hashem is a consuming fire. Ella, so what's it coming to teach you? What does it mean that you should go after Hashem your God? You're going to get consumed by the fire. So it says the Gemara, you should go after Hashem's attributes, Hashem's ways. Just like Hashem dresses the naked, after the sin of the Eitzadas, Hashem made clothing for Adam and Chava, and we're going to learn about what those clothing in a minute. So just like Hashem clothed them, they didn't have clothes. You give tzedakah and give clothes to people that don't have clothing. Hashem visited the sick. It says in the pasuk of Parshas Vayera, Hashem appeared to Avram Avinu in Elin and Mamre after he got the bris. And so you go visit the sick. Hashem comforted the mourners. After Avram passed away, Hashem blessed Yitzchak his son. He was comforting him for Avram passing away. So too you comfort the mourners. Hashem buried the dead. It says in the pasuk in Parshas Vayera that Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu. So too you should be nice to people. Chesed Shalem and bury the people after they pass away. Good? Following in the ways of Hashem. It's a mitzvah. Next.
Where does that come from?
From right here. That you should go in the ways of Hashem. There's another pasuk that says that you should go in the ways of Hashem. We also learn from there. And also these three things, which are Bikur Chaylim, Nichma Velim, and Malvin Sharumim, and to bury the dead, these 4 mitzvahs are also included in the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael. So there's a lot of sources for all these mitzvahs. Okay, next. Kasneis or. The Torah said, we quoted the pasuk before that Hashem made kasneis or, clothing of or for Adam and Chava. Yehuda, I want you to follow along. We're by the two dots. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines for the bottom of the narrow lines.
Yes, very well.
All right, there.
Kasneis or. Hashem made for them clothing of or. So or, the word or means skin, hide, animal skin.
Doesn't R mean light?
Or with an aleph means light. Very good. Or with an ayin means skin. Very good. In Rameir Balanes, in his Torah, so it said this word or with an aleph. But our Torah say it with an ayin. So as I Rav Shmuel, Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, what does it mean? Chadamar one says that that it's referring to something that comes from skin. It's referring to wool. That wool grows out of skin, grows out of animal skin. So Hashem made wool clothing for Adam and Chava. Chadamar, the other one says that davar shel or nena mimenu, it's something that the skin benefits from, which is linen. That it's a very nice feeling on the skin. Darshan that Torah the Torah starts with gemilas chasadim, with kindness, and it ends with acts of kindness. The Torah starts with kindness. It starts in Parshas Bereshis where Hashem makes clothing for Adam and Chava. And it ends with Milas Chasadim, the pasuk that we keep on quoting, that Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu in the valley. Darshan in the wide lines now. Yudalad Amad Aleph. How come Moshe? How come Moshe wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael? Did he want to go to eat the good fruits over there? He wanted to go get satisfied from all the good produce of Eretz Yisrael. What did Moshe really? Why did Moshe want to go in so badly that he asked Hashem so many times to go into Eretz Yisrael, like we learned yesterday? This is what Moshe said. There's many mitzvahs in the Torah that we can only fulfill in Eretz Yisrael. So it says Moshe Rabbeinu, let me go into Eretz Yisrael, so that I'll be able to fulfill all these mitzvahs. Amar like Kadosh Baruch Hu said the Eibishter back to him. Why do you want to do all these mitzvahs in order to get rewarded for it? So it says Hashem, you're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and I'm going to consider it as if you did all these mitzvahs. Like it says in the pasuk. Now we're quoting a pasuk in Yeshaya Perek Nun Gimel, which the pshat in the pasuk is about the reward that the Yidden are going to get when Mashiach comes because of all the hardships that they went through during Galus, guys. A pasuk in Yeshaya that says like this: therefore, I will give him a portion amongst the multitudes. And he's going to split it with the greats, with the strong. He's going to split the spoils. Because he gave up his life to die. And he is counted amongst the sinners. So what does this pasuk mean? And he bore the sins of the many. So it's and he prayed for the sinners. So now we're going to darshan this pasuk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem is saying that he's going to get rewarded for all the mitzvahs. I'm going to give him a portion amongst the many. So you might think that he's going to get a portion like the later tzaddikim. But like and not like the earlier tzaddikim. So the pasuk says he's going to split the spoils with the greats. And who's the greats? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that they were great and mighty in Torah over mitzvahs and mitzvahs. Because on account, as a reward for him giving up his life, he was ready to go die. Misa that Moshe Rabbeinu gave his life over to die. It says in the pasuk by the Cheta Egel that the Yidden sinned, and Hashem said, "I'm going to destroy the Yidden." And Moshe said, if you don't forgive the Yidden, erase me from the book that you have written. So erasing Moshe from the Torah is like Moshe giving up his life. And he is counted amongst the sinners. Moshe is included in the generation that died in the desert because they sinned, because they complained they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael, and he's counted amongst them. And he bore the sin of the many. That Moshe single-handedly atoned for the Chet Egel. And he davened for the sinners. He davened for the sinners amongst the Jewish nation that they should do tshuva. And it says, I use the word yafgia, which really means to meet. But how do we know that it means to pray? It says in the pasuk in Yirmiyav, you don't pray for this nation. Don't bring up songs and prayers for them. And don't meet me, meaning don't daven to me about this nation. They're doomed, and their punishment is bound to happen. We have concluded the Perek Rishon of Sotah. We will return to Perek Hamakani L'Ishtoi, and now we will move on to Perek Beis Haya maybe. Okay. So part of the service of the Sotah, part of the procedure is that she brings a carbon mincha. We mentioned it a little bit before. We're gonna have a lot of details today. We're gonna try to get through it as quickly as we can. Class, guys, by the way, officially goes until 6 o'clock. If we go later, so the next class will be booked up. But we still have another 25 minutes officially, even in the schedule. And if we go later, so the break we'll spend later. Okay, so so here we go. The Sotah brings a mincha. A mincha is a flower offering. There's different kinds of minachos that are brought. We learned them in Parshas Tzav and in Parshas Vayikra. Marcheshes, Mafei Tanur, Machvas. We learned all these different kinds earlier in the year. But what we're going to learn a long Tosefta today about minachos b'chlal and the difference between that and a mincha Sotah. So let's jump right in. The husband pays for the Sotah's carbon, and he brings her carbon. He brings her mincha, guys. He brings her mincha b'soif kfifa mitzris in a basket made out of palm net, just like the chevel mitzri that he would tie around the woman's body to keep her clothing up. So too the basket that her mincha was brought in was in this kfifa mitzris made out of this palm net. He would place it in her hands. Why would she have to hold the mincha the entire time? There was a whole procedure that had to happen, and we learned today in the morning about the psukim that he would say to her, and she would say Amen, Amen, and they were walking around, and the whole time she's holding this mincha in the basket. Yossi. The whole time they're holding the mincha in the basket. Why? In order to get her tired out. Why do we need to tire her out? Because we want to get her to admit if she was guilty that she cheated on her husband. We want her to admit so that she won't have to drink the water. All of the menachos.
The water's bad to drink.
What? If she was guilty that she had cheated on her husband and she drinks the water, she's going to die from it. So we don't want her to have to drink from it. We want her to admit it. If she was guilty, so that she won't have to drink it.
But she doesn't know that the water is going to kill her.
She does.
She does?
Yeah, that's what we told her that. We try to scare her up. And so that she would only drink it if she was innocent. Every mincha, tchilas and v'seifim b'kli shares. Other minachos, not the carbon Sotah. So they begin in a kli shares. A kli shares means a holy vessel, a vessel that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. That when you put something in the kli shares, it gets kedushas haguf. We spoke about this in Dav Vav. That there's two parts of the kedusha of a carbon mincha. You have the kedushas damim, which is when the man says, "This is going to be for my carbon," where he designates it for a carbon. There, the flower has the value of the flower is holy, and if he wants to use the flower for something else, he has to redeem it. Chevre, you following along? He has to redeem it. Then once you put it in the kli shares in the Beis Hamikdash's vessel, it gets kedushas haguf, that the flower itself is holy, and you can't anymore. You're not able to anymore. You're not able to redeem it for something else. So by a regular mincha, it starts in a kli shares. You put it in a kli shares lechatchila, and it finishes off in a kli shares. We're going to see details what that means on the next Talmud. Bezoi, however, this one, the mincha Sotah tchilas b'kfifa mitzris, it starts with a kfifa mitzris with this palm net basket, not a kli shares. V'seifa b'kli shares. However, it's going to end up also like any other mincha in a kli shares. Next, kol ha-menachos, every mincha to unais shemen levayna, they need stay out. So they need shemen, oil, and levayna and frankincense. V'zoi, this mincha ena to una loy shemen v'loy levayna. It doesn't get not oil and not frankincense. The mincha Sotah, it just is the plain flour, barley flour. Every mincha bois menachitin is made out of wheat flour. V'zoi, this mincha Sotah, ba min ha'sa'irin, comes from barley flour. Minchas ha'omer, however, there's one exception besides for the minchas Sotah that's also barley flour, which is minchas ha'omer. The carbon omer that's brought on the second day of Pesach is also barley flour. However, afal pisha ba min ha'sa'irin is also brought from sa'irim, but he haisa ba geres, it was sifted flour. V'zoi, this one, the minchas Sotah ba'a kemach, is unsifted flour. It's not fine flour. Ram Gamliel says, Kishem Shemasa Masa Behema, just like her actions were animalistic actions, even if she was innocent, which is hopefully the only women that are going through with this procedure are women that are taka innocent, but she acted like in an animalistic way, that her husband told her not to seclude herself with this person. Obviously, there was a suspicion and there was inappropriate behavior going on between them, and she still secluded herself with him in front of Edom. So kach karbana meichel behema. So too, to symbolize that she was acting in an animalistic way, the carbon of the Sotah is made out of animal food, which is barley. People don't eat barley bread; they eat wheat bread. Barley bread is meant for animals. Okay, Gemara. Tanya, we learned in a brayso that Abba Chanan Omer. The Chanan says Mishum Rabbi Lazar in the name of Rabbi Lazar. The kol kach lama. How come we put it in her hands in order to tire her out? We try so hard to tire out the woman in order that she should admit. Why? So that she should admit that she is guilty and she should return and be able to continue life as usual. Yeah, so we're trying so hard for the woman's life. It's for her own good that we are trying to tire her out. This is, by the way, unlike what we said earlier in the Masechta and Zayin, that we said that we tire her out in order that Hashem's name shouldn't be erased in the water, right? Because there's two things that we're concerned with. If the Sotah is going to back out at some point, we don't want to erase Hashem's name for no reason. So therefore, we try to get her to admit. And besides for that reason, we have the reason that we want to preserve her life. If she's guilty, she should be able to admit it now. Good. And im kacha chasa Torah al it says, the Gemara says Abachanan, that if the Torah is so careful, the Torah it cherishes the life of someone that goes against Hashem's will, this woman who's the Sotah, how much more so does Hashem cherish the lives of those that do as well? And how do you know that the reason why we're trying to tire her out is in order to get her to admit so that she shouldn't die? Maybe it's in order that the Megillah shouldn't be erased. How do you know that it's because we care about her? Maybe it's because we don't want the Eibishter's name to be erased. Says the Gemara, Kasavar, this Tana holds, turning to Amud Beis, Mashka v'achar makrivas mincha. So that first he gives her to drink and then he brings the carbon. The Imi Megillah ha'im chikala. So let's just I'm just gonna say in a few dafim we're gonna have a whole big machlekes, a three-way machlekes. Daf Yotes, about the order of how we do it. Is it that you first give her to drink the water? Does she first bring the carbon mincha? Do you first erase the Megillah? There's a whole machlekes about what the order is exactly. So this Tana holds that first she drinks it and then she brings the carbon mincha. So at this point in the Masechta where she's holding the carbon mincha, that she already drank the water. So we're not worried about the name of Hashem being erased. The water is only going to work if she brings the mincha, right? There's a lot of different opinions we're going to get to in that few tests. But the point is that the waters are only going to work if the mincha is kosher. And that's the big question. If one of the ways that you can disqualify a carbon is if you have in mind that this is a pasal of carbon. There's ways to be mefagel a carbon. You think in your mind that this carbon is for someone else, or this carbon I'm going to eat it in the wrong time. So if the woman is smart and she's guilty, so she won't admit it. And when the carbon is being brought, she'll have in mind that this carbon is gonna be a pasal of carbon. She'll be mefagel the carbon, and then go around and close the door. Yehuda, go around and close the door. Go. No, go around and close the door. Go, goodbye. Yeah, go. She's gonna be mefagel the carbon. She'll have a machshavas psul. She'll think that it's a pasal of carbon, and then the carbon's not gonna work, and then the water's not gonna. Right? So how come she can't do that? It's a good question. It ruins the whole mitzvah of Sotah. Even a woman who's guilty is not going to be able to die from the water because she'll just be mefagel the carbon. So there's a sefer from Rabbi Yosef Engel that has 80 answers to this question. So one of the answers is that we learned at the beginning that it's hoya mebias minchasa, that the mincha of the Sotah is really the husband's carbon. The husband has to pay for it. The husband has to bring it. It's the husband's responsibility. So the woman doesn't have the power to hassle her husband's carbon because it's not her carbon. Right, so that's one of the answers. But the point is that's a big question that's dealt with. And good. So according to our Tana, she already drank the water. She has her mincha, and therefore it can't be puzzle from what's it called? And therefore the only reason why we want her to admit now is that she shouldn't die from the. Okay. Next. The Mishnah said we're on Daf Yud Dalet Amud Beis, second line from the top. The Mishnah said that every mincha starts in a klishares, in a holy vessel, and it ends in a klishares. However, mincha Sotah starts in a kfifa mitzvahs, in this palm net basket, not a holy vessel, and it ends in a klishares. So the Gemara is going to fact check the Mishnah. Or Aminu Astira. Now we're going to bring this Tosefta. We're going to learn this Tosefta, and we're going to be analyzing this Tosefta today and tomorrow. It's a long Tosefta. We're going to learn it together. Azoi. A regular mincha. Seder menachos ketzad. How do you bring a regular mincha? This is a Tosefta and Maseches Menachos. A man brings the mincha from his house. How do you bring the mincha to the Beis Hamikdash? The mincha means the flour, whatever amount of flour it is, depending on the mincha. Bil kloses shel kesef v'shel zav. You bring it in gold and silver bowls, and then v'noisna l'sech klishares. You put it into a klishares, into a holy vessel. Umekacha v'klishares. And then you have in mind to sanctify it in the vessel. These words are going to be analyzed a lot. First of all, we learned that it doesn't start in a Kli Sharis. You bring it to the Beis Hamikdash in your own vessels, in your vessels of gold and silver. Yeah. So it's not a Kli Sharis. Our Mishnah said that it starts in a Kli Sharis. So that's the stira, number one. Number two, we have to keep in mind that over here it says that Mekadsha B'Kli Sharis, that you have to sanctify it in the vessel, which means that just putting the flour into the holy vessel, into the Kli Sharis, is not enough to make the flour holy. You need to also have in mind to make it holy. We're going to have to fact check that also. Then it's in the Kli Sharis, you're in the Beis Hamikdash, you put the oil and you put the levain on top of it. Guys, you remember when we made a mincha in Zal?
Mm-hmm.
We made it Parshas Tzav. So this is it comes from this Tosefta. You put on top of the flour now the oil, the olive oil, and you put the levain, the frankincense. When you bring it to the kohen. With kohen the kohen brings it to the mizbeach. The kohen brings the Kli Sharis, this holy vessel with the flour and the oil and the levain inside of it. He touches it to the southwestern corner of the mizbeach. We're going to explain why soon in the Gemara. Keneged chudash al keren, to the exact point, to the spitz of the mizbeach, to the corner. Vidaya, and that's it. And that's enough. Meaning that you don't need to touch the actual flour to the mizbeach, just touching the vessel to the mizbeach is enough. Then the kohen puts his hand in the mincha. He pushes the frankincense, the levina to one side. The kohemetz mimakim shenisraba shamna, and he does the kohemetz. Remember, we did the kohemetz. The kohemetz is the three middle fingers. Yeah, guys, look at this. The kohen, this is actually called the kohen's finger because the kohen is these three fingers. The kohen sticks his three fingers into the mincha, and he goes to a place where there's a lot of oil so that he can get oil and flour in the mincha. He can't get any levina in it. It has to be just oil and flour in the kohemetz. And he takes a kohemetz out of it. He puts that into a different Kli Sharis, into a different holy vessel. And he sanctifies that in the holy vessel. He has to have in mind. That's what it seems that the Tosefta is saying. And then he goes back to the original Kli Sharis. He takes the levaina and the nois al gabav, he puts it in the second Kli Sharis of the kohemetz. He takes the kohemetz in the second Kli Sharis. He brings it up to the mizbeach. And he goes and on the way up to the mizbeach, he salts it. He puts it on top of the fire. So the kohemetz is the only part of the mincha that goes on the fire. So what's in the kohemetz? What is the kohemetz? It's a full 3 fingers worth of oil and flour plus the levaina that he took after.
When do we come up with those 3 fingers?
I don't know. Maybe it's a halacha Meshvi Sinai. It's a question. I don't know. The word kohemetz is in the Torah that he takes a kohemetz. Just what is a kohemetz? I don't know. It's a good question. Okay. Once the kohemetz is brought, the leftovers of the mincha, the shiraim of the mincha, the hanisheres mimena is eaten by who? By the kohenim. The kohenim are able to add into the leftovers of the mincha wine or oil, udvash, honey. They can make it taste good. Just flour and oil doesn't taste very good. The only thing they can't do to it is to make it chametz, because chametz is never allowed in the Beis Hamikdash except for Shavuos. Remember the two loaves. Okay, so that's the end of the Tosefta. The lechem hapanim were not chametz. Huh? They didn't rise. They were bread. Matzah is also bread. They didn't rise to become chametz. Chametz is never allowed except for Shavuos. Okay, so now that was the Tosefta, and now the Gemara is going to analyze. We learned in the Tosefta that that when the man brings the flour, you want to go out? Okay, go for it. When the man brings the carbon mincha to the Beis Hamikdash, he brings it in gold and silver vessels. However, in our Mishnah, we said that it starts in a Kli Sharis. So what's going on? So Amar Rav Papa, Rav Papa says you have to amend the Mishnah. The Kalim Haru'uy in the Kli Sharis. The Mishnah didn't mean that you bring the what's it called? That you bring the mincha, every mincha in a Kli Sharis in a real holy vessel. You don't have holy vessels. The holy vessels are in the Beis Hamikdash. You're bringing it from your house. So what he's saying is that you should bring it in chashuva vessels that could become a Kli Sharis. Right? So the contrast is that when you bring the mincha from your house, the flour from your house, when it's a regular mincha, you bring it in fancy vessels, silver, gold, that is worthy of being a Kli Sharis. Mashenkein, when you bring the mincha Sotah is brought in a derogatory vessel, in a vessel made out of the palm net. So now asks the Gemara, the kfifa mitzvah loy chazia. So are we to say that the kfifa mitzvah that you bring, the palm net thing that you bring the mincha Sotah in, is not able to become a Kli Sharis? Is that true? Kiman, who does this go according to? The like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, this does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The Tanya, we have a brayso that says that kli shares shasan shel eitz, that in any kli shares, a holy vessel that's made out of wood. Rabbi says that it's not kosher, it can't be made out of wood. However, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Machshir Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that you could make it out of wood. Go get a yarmulke, please. Go get a yarmulke and just find it somewhere. Go out.
Was that actual?
Go upstairs. Go home. Go find one somewhere. So says Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda that you can't. Go back. Find it somewhere. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir. So what's going on? We said that the Mishnah contrasted that by a regular mincha you bring it in silver and gold, and we touch that to mean a vessel that's able to be a kli sharis. By a mincha soita, it's not like that. You bring it in the palm net, right? So hastis that the contrast is that it can't be brought as a kli sharis. According to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, it could be a kli sharis. Wood could be a kli sharis. So afilu temer Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. No, the Gemara says Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda also fits with our Mishnah. Why? Because Emer Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda b'chashuvin. When Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says that you could use wood as a holy vessel, as a kli sharis, that's only good wooden vessels, nice, fancy wooden vessels. The a bad vessel made out of palm net, mi Amar, did he say that you could use that as a kli sharis? For sure not. Lately, the Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, pasuk in Malachi that says he's complaining about how the Yidden aren't treating their karbanos properly. You would bring this bad carbon to your governor. You would bring a governor a gift in a kfifa mitzvahs in a palm net basket. Of course not. Even according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, that can't be used as a kli sharis. However, by the mincha soita, since we're trying to degrade her and make it meichel behema, we're trying to make it a lowly carbon. You bring it in a kfifa mitzvahs. Good. By the two dots, guys, we're in middle towards the middle of the yamod. Yud Dalet Amud Beis. Two dots. We're quoting from the Tosefta. We said that you put the mincha, you put the flour in a kli sharis in the holy vessel. The second set of two dots on the yamud, and you're mekadesh it in a kli sharis, and you have to sanctify it in the vessel, which means that you need to have in mind when you put it in a kli sharis that you're making it holy. Just putting the flour in the kli sharis doesn't make it holy by itself. You have to have it in mind. So Shmat kli sharis mekadsh. We learn from here. Should we learn from here this Tosefta that you can only be mekadesh that the kli sharis, the holy vessels, only sanctifies the thing that you put inside it if you did it intentionally? Says the Gemara, no. Ema nice no kli sharis lekadsh kli sharis. You could read it that you put it in the kli sharis in order that it should be sanctified by a kli sharis. That you don't need to have intention when you put it in the kli sharis. It happens automatically. The second you put the flour in, it happens automatically that it becomes holy. Next, v'noisein. So you put on top of the carbon, on top of the flour, you put the oil, you put the levina, the frankincense. Shenemar, how do we see this in the pasuk? Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, the pasuk in Parshas Vayikra, that you have to put shemen and levina on top of the mincha. Good. You bring it to the kohen. It says in the pasuk, we're just bringing now psukim to each clause of the Tosefta. The kohen brings it to the mizbeach. Be quiet, please. Like it says in the pasuk, he has to bring it to the mizbeach. Very good. Then chavra magisha bekeren dremis ma'aravas kineged chudash shel keren v'daya. You have to bring the mincha. The kohen brings the mincha in the kli sharis. He touches it to the southwestern corner of the mizbeach, and that's it. He doesn't need to touch the flour to the southwestern corner, just the kli sharis. So Manolan, how do we know this? It says in the pasuk in Parshas Tzav, this is the law of the mincha. The sons of Aaron have to bring it. L'fnei Hashem before Hashem, el pnei hamizbeach to the face of the mizbeach. So you have two things. You have l'fnei Hashem. The mincha has to be brought before Hashem. It has to be el pnei hamizbeach. So let's make a picture quickly on the board of the Beis Hamikdash. So this is west. This is east, north, and south. The Beis Hamikdash, the heichal is over here. The heichal was 32 amos wide. Then in front of the heichal you have the mizbeach. Also another 32 amos wide, and then you have the ramp going down, also another 32 amos. Like that's over down. What? That's the ramp. Ramp. This is the mizbeach, and this is how it was. So the western side, this is the Kodesh HaGodashim, this whole area. The entrance to the Beis Hamikdash is that way, the east. So you have to bring it l'fnei Hashem. Before Hashem means closer to the Kodesh HaGodashim, which is which side? The western side. So it's going to be by the mizbeach, but you have to bring it closer on the western side of the mizbeach, al pnei mizbeach to the face of the mizbeach. The face of the mizbeach, the front, is where you come up from, the ramp. So it has to be on the west, but then the Torah says it should be on the south, al pnei mizbeach. So which one do you do it? So therefore we learn So Vitanya, we learned that a brayso lifnei Hashem, it should be before Hashem. So Yochel b'mayrev, you might think that you should just bring the mincha to the western side. Talmud Leimar says the pasuk al pnei mizbech, it should be by the face of the mizbech, by the front of the mizbech. So al pnei mizbech, if it would have just said al pnei mizbech Yochel b'darbi, you would think that you bring it to the south side. So says the Gemara. So says the brayso Talmud Leimar lifnei Hashem, before Hashem. So haketzad. So how do you do it? How do you do both of them? So Magisha b'keren dremis ma'arav is connected to chudosh al keren v'dayo. The kohen has to touch it to the southwest corner of the mizbeach, and then you have both west and you have both sides. Rebbe Lazar says, okay, now that's the Tanakam, and that's what Arte Sefta was. Yeah. Huh?
How are we finishing?
When we get up to the bottom of the Yom.
So where are we up to?
We are in the middle of the Yom. Okay, so 1 second. Rebbe Lazar has a different opinion. So that's the Tanakama. The Tanakama says that the Mizbeach was directly in front of the Kodesh HaKadosh. Then you have north. According to Rebbe Lazar, the Mizbeach was made, let's say you have halfway between let's say you split the Heichel in half, north and south. Yeah, so you have an imaginary line over here. The Mizbeach was entirely on the northern side of the Heichel. So according to Rebbe Lazar, the Mizbeach was over here. It was 32. Shh, guys. Shh. There's another opinion, by the way, that it was only on the southern side. But Rebbe Lazar holds that it was just on the north. So now, if you do it in order to, could you go out, Mikey? Could you leave? Okay. So according to Rebbe Lazar, it's on the northern side. Now, according to Rebbe Lazar, in order to have it lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, it doesn't need to be on the western side. How come? Because if you just do it on the south, it's already right opposite the entrance of the Heichel. Yeah? It's right opposite the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So according to Rebbe Lazar, it doesn't need to be, according to Rebbe Lazar, it does not need to be by the corner. It could even be just on the southern side of the Mizbech, and that's good enough. And that's what he says in the Tosefta, in the Brisa. Where are we? Rebbe Lazar Amar, you might think that you should bring it either to the west side or to the southern side. So Amrat, so you say like this: whenever you find mitzvah that has two different psukim, if you follow one of the psukim, you'll be able to follow that pasuk and the other pasuk. But if you would follow the other pasuk, it only follows itself. But the other pasuk, it leaves in the dust. And what he's going to say is, so what do? You leave the pasuk that if you follow that one will follow itself and not the other one. What are we trying to say? Rebbe Lezer says that there's two things: there's lifnei Hashem and there's el pnei mizbeach. If you do lifnei Hashem before Hashem, then it has to be on the western side. Then you don't get el pnei mizbeach. You only get the western side. You don't get the southern side. But if you do the southern side, he says that if you do just the southern side, you're actually doing both. You're doing lifnei Hashem and el pnei mizbeach. Because you're on the southern side, it's pnei mizbeach, the face of the mizbeach, but it's also lifnei Hashem because it's opposite the entrance of the Heichel. So says Rabbi Lazar, you should just do it on the southern side, and then you're good. When Beit decided. If you're going to tell me to do it on the western side, then you lose the bedarim, the southern side, the el pnei mizbeach. When you do el pnei mizbeach bedarim on the south, you're also fulfilling the Pnei Hashem, which is the western side, because the bottom of the Mizbeach, the southern side, is opposite the entrance to the Kodesh. Very good. So Haketzad. So he says, what do you do, guys? So what do you do? Magisha l'dremeshel Karen. You bring it to the south of the Karen. V'heichon kiyamta. So now, 1 second, the Gemara asks, how does that fulfill it? The Gemara doesn't yet know that we're talking about his opinion that it's in the northern side, and he thinks that it's over here, that you just do it over here. That's not good. Ravashi, because over Haitana, this Tana holds that Kule Mizbeach B'Tzafin Koi, that the entire Mizbeach is in the north. Very good. Next, my Vidayosh. Why does the Tosefta say that the Kohen brings it to the corner, the southwest corner? Vidayosh, and that's it. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines from the bottom of the Amud. My Vidayosh. Why does he say Yossi? You bring it to the corner of the Mizbeach, and that's it. That's it. That's enough. Rabashi says, it needs to say because I would have thought that that you need to actually touch the actual flour and oil to the mizbeach. Kamash Malon says that just touching the klishares, just the vessel touching the mizbeach is enough. So how do you know that? Maybe the actual flour does have to touch the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'yikriva ala kohen," you bring it to the kohen, v'gomer v'yigish ala mizbech, and he brings it to the mizbech. It's makish, the bringing to the kohen. We juxtapose you bringing the mincha to the kohen and the kohen bringing it to the mizbech. Just like when you bring it to the kohen, you bring it in a klisharis. You don't put flour in the kohen's hand. So too, when the kohen touches it to the mizbech, it's in a vessel.
Who chose?
Good. Next. You move the levina to one side in order that none of the levina should come up together with the mincha when the guy does the kaimetz. Why? It's not like we have a mishnah in Menachos that says, "Kamas." If the kohen did the kmitzah and a little pebble came up together with it, a gargar melach or a grain of salt, a keret levina or a grain of levina, puzzle, it's puzzle. Haste this that it needs to be dafka just flour and oil in the kaimetz, and the levina is moved to the side. The levina is added to the kaimetz later, but when you're doing the kaimetz, when the kohen is taking it with his fingers, it can't have any levina in it. We're going to continue tomorrow with daf tes vav.